The main character, whose name is Eliere, is in a carriage that drives around the city, and all people look at her with admiration. After Eliere finally arrived at her destination, she got off the carriage with the thought that all people call her an unhappy bride, since the man she is marrying is called Hades. He is the son of the empire that shines in eternal glory. His name is Qatar Esperion. The reason why this wedding is happening is related to alcohol. Being in some bar, she loudly put a mug of alcohol on the table and stated that it was not her fault that he was so stupid. Mumbling, she said it's okay not to know which side the sun rises at 30. She didn't understand how the sun can rise from Andera Hill since it's the west of the Imperial Palace. She was also very interested if he had some kind of magical powers with which he could change the position of the sun in the sky. The reason the main character is drinking now is because she was dumped by her fiancé who she hasn't seen in over 10 years, and all she did was mention that the sun was rising from the east, and he decided to break off their engagement. Suddenly, some man in a raincoat and with black hair approached the girl, saying that it was right. This man was Qatari. This surprised the main character a little, and she didn't understand where he came from, since he had just been further away from her. But looking at this guy, she doesn't think that he can be a bad person. Suddenly, Qatar gave her food, and at that moment, the girl was finally convinced that he was not a bad person, and most likely even much better than her stupid ex-fiancé, thinking she dreams of going back to the academy, but she already got her doctorate. Also, if she went back, she would not look for marriage partners. Suddenly, Qatar asked Eliere if she was looking for someone to marry him, to which the girl stated that she hates old and ugly men, since they are the worst. Trying to stay awake, she remarked that if she had to get married anyway, she would want a husband who was smart and handsome, and he did not have to be on the same level as Udel, who is also smart and handsome. When she wanted to look at the guy's face, Eliere realized that due to intoxication and his raincoat, she could not see his face clearly, but even this did not stop her from suggesting that he looks pretty handsome. In addition, listening to his beautiful voice, she began to melt in front of him before him. She could not take her eyes off his amber eyes. They are very cute. At that moment, the girl realized that next time she should find a handsome guy. Besides, there is no need to be too picky. Suddenly, the girl just passed out due to too much drinking, which surprised the guy a little in general, and he said that she should not sleep here. She said that she didn't care because she was tired anyway. Falling asleep, she imagined a future husband with whom she could enjoy drinks together. Then she decided that her future husband should be like this man in a raincoat. She finally realized that the perfect candidate is right in front of her eyes, and she should not lose him. Being at a loss, she did not leave the thought that this man could turn out to be a very pleasant, handsome, and good listener. Suddenly, Eliere asked the mysterious guy if he is married or are he engaged. However, he said no with sadness on his face. It was a bit surprising about the girl, and she said something perfect. After that, suddenly she proposed to him to marry. Grabbing Qatar by the hand, she begged him to marry her. However, the guy was in complete shock and did not even know how to react to this, since he barely knows this girl. Seeing the reaction of the guy, the main character realized that most likely he did not want to marry them, but Qatar replied that this was not the case. He asked the girl if she didn't care about her status. Then Eliere immediately realized what was the matter. She came to this pub in the sense that only nobles come here to have fun in secret. Pub do not put up a sign saying that only nobles can enter here, although drinks here are very expensive. Then she decided to ask him if he is an ordinary commoner, which surprised the guy a little, and he shook his head and answered yes. However, the girl began to assure him that everything was not so bad, and this would not affect her title in any way. Besides, what difference does it make what his status is, since they will just get married? After that, she explained to him that she was the only child in the family, and she needed to get married quickly and give birth to an heir. However, that scoundrel, namely her former fiancé, is not only stupid but also looks like a carp. In addition, he is bald. Children accept their parents whether they like it or not. But no matter how much the main character tries, a carp like him can only have carp children. Her parents may not accept their daughter's husband at first, but when they see his face, they instantly realize that the main character made the right choice. In thought, she realized that this plan might work, and she should come up with something else. With sadness, she asked herself if she should look for more noblemen. But after looking at the alcohol in her mug, she immediately started drinking it, saying that she would just enjoy this alcohol until she passed out. After drinking all the contents of the mug, she said, smiling, that she had a good time and now she can return home. She also said that tomorrow try to find a promising husband, and if he doesn't succeed, then he will try the day after tomorrow and after the day after tomorrow. Turning around, she felt very pleased, and were going to get home as quickly as possible before going to sleep. But Qatar immediately stopped her, saying that it was not safe to walk alone now, as there are dangerous people. Suddenly the guy said that he would do whatever the girl wanted, which was a little, and she finally decided to remove the hood from him in order to see his face. Indignantly, she said that he was the most suspicious person here. However, when she saw his face, she was simply amazed by his beauty, and she did not understand why he hid his face all this time, since it actually looks much better than Udel. But for the fact that she scored very drowsy, she did not understand anything that he was saying. The next day, Eliere woke up in the imperial mansion from the rays of the sun. She woke up with a headache. Also, she didn't know how much she drank last night, so she assumed she only drank 5 glasses. Suddenly, she realized that she even had a hangover, and slowly she began to remember everything that happened to her yesterday. But due to the fact that she had a severe headache, I felt like someone was hitting her with a hammer on the head. She could not even think normally. Eliere started to make excuses to the maid. They say that she didn't really drink too much, and because she rarely drinks, she quickly got drunk. Meanwhile, the maid brought her a mug of honey water. They say it should help with a hangover. Besides that, she realized that they didn't even give her a check. And in general, she doesn't know who helped her get home yesterday. At that moment, the maid, indignant, did not understand how the main character could not remember, since one of the workers at the pub carried her home, and she was very lucky that he did it, since it was night outside and there were a lot of dangerous people. After a while in the carriage, Eliere finally understood why the pub asks all its visitors to write their names, and this is in order to somehow cope with them if they get very drunk. But she still could not understand why they did not give a check. In addition, she is more frightened by the fact that she cannot remember anything, so she decided to calm down and forget about it, because even if she did something already there, they will still contact her soon. After a while, the girl finally came to her friend, whose name is Lorraine, who was very glad to meet her. Eliere smiled and thanked the girl for inviting her, while Lorraine was amazed by the dress of the main character. After that, a friend asked the main character what happened to Count Fekida. The girl, holding a glass of some kind of drink in her hands, replied that they just broke off the engagement. Besides, they had not seen each other for 10 years, and they do not suit each other. Besides, Fekida started it all and she did not take part in making this decision. Looking closely at her friend, Fekida noticed that she behaves very unevenly and anxiously. In addition, she looks at her very strangely. Therefore, the main character asked about her friend if the Count spreads various rumors about her and speaks badly about her. At that moment, Lorraine replied that in fact the Count is a very strange person when it comes to his intellect. Lorraine explained that his family works in the trade, so all his family members speak at least 3 languages, but the Count failed his trilingual test, so his little cousin became the head of the family business. In addition, there are various rumors that he got engaged to Eliere in order to use her intellect. So besides, the main character was in all the newspapers for being able to enroll in the academy at the top of her callus. But the main character did not understand why he then decided to break off their engagement, since she only explained to him that the sun rises from the east and not the west, as he said. Lorraine, smiling, explained that this Count wanted an intelligent woman who would be obedient, which surprised the main character a little, since she herself does not know where he could find such a woman. Noticing that her friend was angry, Lorraine began to calm her down, saying that you don't need to waste your strength on such a fool. And even if he spreads rumors about her, people are more interested in another topic. Namely, the Emperor announced that he was getting married, which surprised the main character a little, since she did not know that he was single. Then Eliere returned back to the palace, which surprised Zhanggu a little since she did not expect the main character to return so quickly. She replied that she returned because she was very bored there, but in fact she did not like that other people spread various rumors about her engagement to that and the Count, and she decided to leave that party. Sitting at the table to drink some tea, she asked the maid to give her the latest newspaper. Taking the newspaper, she thanked the maid, saying that if she needs something, she will call her. The emperor finally announced his marriage 7 years after he ascended the throne. So the main character, I did not understand why such a cold-blooded and cruel emperor made such an unusual announcement. Also, the name of the bride is still unknown, but Eliere already has condolences. Continuing to read the newspaper, the main character found out that His Majesty had recently been seen as he was spending time with some unknown lady in secret. Due to the fact that he had not contacted other girls before, this lady could be the bride. Although this girl's face has not yet been identified, the paper said that she also has long pink hair, with a slight tint of light sky blue at the tips. Then Eliere immediately remembered how she wore a wig with these colors yesterday, because it did not seem very beautiful. Then, putting the newspaper on the table, she began to calm herself. They say that she was in the form of a word that she should not have seen, and most likely she is still drunk. Holding some box in her hands, she said that after the engagement was broken off, she was very annoyed and threw away her wig, and most likely where they wrote about the hair color. It was just a mistake. Eliere remembered how yesterday she asked her maid named Jerry to dye her hair in any light she wanted, and most likely the maid dyed her wig in this color. Then she finally realized that the woman with whom the emperors should marry was she. The main character began to vaguely remember that she was drinking with someone, and her maid. After she came home, she went to that pub to take the check. However, she found out that someone had already paid for her. In addition, since the main character has not been in the capital for more than 10 years, she does not know anyone here, and she assumes that the man with whom she then drank could be the emperor. Eliere couldn't believe it so easily, and she didn't understand how the emperors could go to such a pub, and why he even started talking to some simple girl like her, whom he didn't even know. While reading the news, the main character remembered how that mysterious man hugged her and said that she could not fall asleep here. He also urged her to wait a bit until the carriage came for her. Also, at that moment, she explained to the guy that she really didn't joke and didn't care about his status. She also explained to him that in fact she was quite smart and wealthy, to which the man replied that he knew this a little surprised her. Being alone in a room in a state of shock, Eliere did not even know what to do now. As she continued to read the news, she realized that the reporters were still trying to find out the real identity of the girls, but they couldn't do it tomorrow. Besides, there are no more married ladies in the empire with this hair color. Throwing away the newspaper, the main character realized that she had screwed up. In addition, in the morning, all the newspapers are talking only about this incident. Holding her head, Eliere understood that she had to face the reality. Moreover, most likely due to the fact that she was foam, she remembers things wrong. In addition, she doubts that she spoke so casually with the emperor, even in a drunken state. She began to think that the emperor would blame her for talking to him casually. Also, instead of cooking the food, the emperor did it, which she also considers unacceptable. And thirdly, she boasted about her status. They say that she has a title and he should not worry about it. Suddenly, she remembered how she gently touched the face of the emperor, saying that she already imagines their wonderful future together. In addition to this, she said that if they get married, then they should not worry about the appearance of their children. After that, she gently hugged the emperor. They say that he should no longer ask questions. I will not be able to live happily ever after. Crying, Eliere did not understand why he had such a good memory, and she was able to remember everything in the smallest detail. And for her damned mouth, she would most likely be executed. She was more alarmed by her behavior with the emperor than by a potential marriage to him. Suddenly getting up, she began to justify herself to herself, saying that she did not even know that the emperor would be in that place. Or at least he should have said that he was the emperor. After looking again at the newspaper, she realized that the media is actually speculating on this news, but they still don't know who the emperor's bride is. After seeing the photo with Qatar, the main character was a little surprised by his beauty and admitted that they really look very beautiful. In thought, the girl was sure that all men get cold feet before their wedding, like women, and most likely that is why the emperor came to that place last night and had misfortune of running into her. Clutching the newspaper, Eliere was glad that she was worried over nothing. She should not be influenced by the media so easily, as they can easily control people. The main character has heard from other people that the emperor is quite peculiar, but not crazy enough to marry a drunk woman he met for the first time in his life. Also, Eliere decided that she was writing a letter to the academy about the job they offered her as a professor, and she was already starting to imagine a great future in this academy. Suddenly, a mother came into the room who did not understand what kind of mess was in this room, and suggested that her daughter was just taking out her anger on these newspapers. Upon hearing this, the main character immediately began to get rid of pieces of paper, asking why she came here, to which her mom replied that she instructed great news that she had to run right over. She also asked her daughter to look at this letter in which His Majesty invites all single ladies in the empire to a ball on this year's coming-of-age day. This surprised Eliere a little, since she knows that the emperor has never held a ball in his mansion before. Looking at the title of this letter, it says that all single ladies in the empire must attend, which sounds like a threat. The main character did not understand why he arranged all this, and why all women must be present there. Mom began to cheer up her daughter, saying that for her this is an opportunity to find a new groom, who is much better than that pot-bellied count. In addition, the main character is very smart and beautiful, and Mom is sure that she can easily attract the attention of some man. Smiling, she added that now they need to find her a suitable dress that would stand out from other girls, so tomorrow she won't go to boutiques. The main character is a little upset because she doesn't really want to get married because she dislikes stupid men. Meanwhile, in one of the palaces, some man who was injured was asking what he did, that he deserved such a cruel treatment of himself. As it turned out, this man was on his knees in front of the emperor, who calmly looked at this man. Then, muttering, he asked him if he really wanted to know the reason for killing him. Qatar began to explain that he was now very interested in finding out about the documents that were in the safe of his room. He also explained to him that if this man thought that his plan had failed, then he had to burn all the evidence. Approaching him and smiling, he again asked him if he still needed an excuse for stomping on a bug who was getting on his nerves. Qatar called the guy a complete fool who made the emperor kneel before him, so the man should complain. He began to beg the emperor for mercy, but the emperor did not feel sorry for him and ordered the executioner to deal with him quickly. After that, Qatar asked his assistant how to risk everything that was this man, since everything is very suspicious. He also added that the safe should be on the second floor, so he wants his assistant to deliver it directly to the operator. Also, the emperor ordered to find all relatives with whom he shares his blood, including those who were born out of wedlock, since they all should be executed. At that moment, the man apologized and said that they might meet opposition from conservative nobles. Upon hearing this, the emperor was a bit surprised, but stated that he holds the highest position in this empire, and anyone who dares to oppose him will be considered traitors. Also, everyone who tests must be eliminated so that they can find people who can replace them. Besides this, the emperor reminded by his assistant that there should be no exceptions here, and all who are relatives of that men should be eliminated, since no one knows if one of them wants to use his bloodline as an excuse to start a rebellion against the emperor. Then Qatar went to his other room where there was a butler who immediately bowed to the emperor and said that his outfit for the ball was almost ready. However, the butler said that there is one small problem, namely, they heard that the hair of the young lady who will soon become the empress is multicolored, so the seamstress had a little difficulty choosing the color for the outfit. Smiling, the emperor replied that the seamstresses most likely went to a newspaper in which reporters publish ridiculous claims with the excuse of informing the public. But in fact, this is not so, and her hair is actually blonde. Meanwhile, the main character, along with Jerry, chose her outfit, however. All the outfits that the maid offered Eliere did not like, as they looked too bright and not impressive. Approaching the princess, the maid said that she didn't like all of her outfits. However, she has to choose one, and even if she doesn't like those outfits, it's the styles that everyone wears these days. Suddenly, the maid came up with a small idea. Namely, she wants to use the elimination process in order to exclude all the outfits that she does not like the most, and after that she can choose her favorite from the rest. Meanwhile, Eliere, on reflection, realized that she really should buy a new outfit, so she decided that she wanted a dress with fewer ribbons and decorations. At that moment, she realized that if she excludes all the outfits that she does not like, then she simply will not have something to wear. But she tries to cheer herself up in every possible way. They say that she should have a dress that she would like. Suddenly, she noticed some black dress that she immediately liked, and she told Jerry that this dress fits her taste perfectly. However, the maid, being perplexed, replied that it was actually a dress for mourning. At that moment, Jerry promised the main character that she would try to find the best dress that she would like. But for now, she can rest. However, Eliere couldn't just stand and do nothing, so she decided that she also wanted to look at other dresses and went to the boutiques. Meanwhile, the two women were talking among themselves, and they were very surprised that the emperor is holding a ball on the coming-of-age day. Whispering quietly among themselves, the woman said that the emperor wants all unmarried women to attend that event, and because of this, all unmarried men will also be there, so it will be more of a big gathering. Looking at everything like that, the main character also did not understand why it all looked so strange, even for her. As for a person who knows nothing about high society, after listening to what other women say, she learned that the emperor is most likely preparing for his wedding, but no one yet knows who the bride is. When choosing her necklace, Eliere heard that those women hope that this time will not happen. No bloodshed, since the last time the emperor dealt with Baron Facile. This all happened because this baron said something disrespectful to the emperor. Also, this emperor can even deal with his maid who took care of him since he was an infant. Having heard this, the main character scolding her leg was surprised and hiding. She did not understand what these women were talking about. The inhabitants of the empire should honor and serve the emperor, but they should still be able to raise objections if he's executing people without any due process or a trial. At that moment, Eliere thought thoughtfully that these nobles want to oppose the emperor. After a while, Jerry returned back to Eliere and was very surprised to see the main character who was hiding behind the wall. Turning around, the main character asked the maid if she could find some dresses, to which the maid said that she had already talked with the designer, and she said that she would make a custom-made dress. Upon hearing this, Eliere left this room as quickly as possible and talked somewhere else, which surprised Jerry a little, and she did not understand why Miss is in such a rush. Meanwhile, women were very interested in who the new empress was, since not one noblewoman still does not know who she might be. They assumed something might turn out to be some kind of citizen of another empire, as it was written in the news. Suddenly, one of the women, holding a mug of tea in her hands, said that even if they find out who it is, it won't change anything, and she doesn't envy her at all. Eliere, looking at these women, heard that the emperor had previously said that he would never want to marry, and they do not understand what changed his decision so dramatically. Due to the fact that the main character lived half her life in the neutral zone, namely at the academy, she is not a patriot, but she is a scholar, and that is why she began to study all the information that is available to her and the emperor. The current emperor was originally the third prince and the child of the former second wife of the emperor, so he didn't stand out much. However, he became a knight at 15 and rose to the position of captain with his abilities alone. He was even able to deal with the demons in the Coral Mountains with his brute strength. Although at that time, everyone believed that it was impossible to deal with these demons, and after he successfully dealt with all the monsters, he completed the map of the Western Mountains and returned to the capital. Even if the main character studied at the academy, everyone was talking about this demon-slaying expedition in the Western Mountains, and she had no idea that the current emperor was the captain of the knights back then. She never ceased to be amazed by his biography, and even began to read him not as a man, but as some kind of creature that belongs to another species. And with such achievements as his, it is not surprising that he became a promising candidate for emperor. However, a lot of strange and suspicious incidents happened before he ascended the throne. Namely, in the same year that the current emperor returned from his expedition, the crown prince mysteriously died from falling off his horse. And the following year, the second prince died in the carriage incident. After his two brothers passed away, the empress retreated to a villa to the south, where she died due to illness. And Eliere does not understand how so many family members died in just 5 years. Everyone knows that the current emperor benefited from these deaths, which is most likely why the nobles remain silent in matches, even knowing that the emperors are behaving unreasonably. and they are simply afraid that they will be the next to die by his sword. However, the main character still could not understand how such a cruel tyrant could allow some drunken woman to treat him like that. She was also very ashamed of everything she did that night. Jumping on the bed and waving her arms, she screamed that it all happened through his fault, and if he had not begun to communicate with her at the moment when she was drunk, she would not have got into such a strange situation. Thoughtfully, she asked herself if this was part of to have a drink with the emperor. Rising, she decided that she would just lie low at the ball and leave without attracting anyone's attention, although if she was wearing a wig, she could easily recognize her. The emperor specially strengthens his tyrannical image on purpose, and if this were not the case, why would he allow the newspapers to write fake news about him and call him Hades? In fact, the media would not criticize him at all, since the emperor quickly executed such critics. Eliere knows very well that he has a very good head on his shoulders, and he has much more strength than her, so this can be dangerous, and she should do nothing better. Meanwhile, Qatar, looking at his hand, was thinking that wedding rings should be worn on the finger of the left hand, since this is the first for him. He also said that if he knew that he could tie her down forever with an ordinary ring, then he would have done it a long time ago. The next day, the main character put herself in order and prepared for the ball. The smiling maid said that she was very happy that Eliere was so responsive at the boutique. Besides, the designer is named Madame Rosso. You were already inspired by her request, namely to minimize the ribbons and frills and to look at make less trendy. Jerry said that the designer is also probably tired of these ribbons and frills, and thanks to this, the main character looks more mature than usual. Looking at herself in the mirror, the main character was shocked by this dress and could not even believe that she looks much more beautiful in it. Meanwhile, Lorraine had already come to her friend and was amazed by her beauty. She had also already heard rumors that Madame Rosso was inspired by her request, and advised her friend to dress like this more often as it looks amazing. Also, a friend is sure that the main character will stand out most of all among all those unmarried women. While on the ball, Eliere was a little surprised by the number of people there, as she expected there to be far fewer people. It was written in the invitation that all unmarried ladies should be here. And since the main character and her fiancé are only engaged and nothing got married, she can technically be here. Lorraine was also surprised by the number of guests, but she immediately, if not in front of her friend, and said that she would like to spend more time with her. However, she should go and greet the other engaged couples. Then Eliere said goodbye to her friend, saying that she did not want to detain her. She also told her that she would tell her fiancé that Eliere is grateful he escorted her here as well. Leaving, the smiling friend said that she hopes that the main character will meet Dashing Man today. However, the main character has already decided that unfortunately she does not plan to date any dashing person today, but will simply try to stick to the plan and remain as invisible as possible. Besides, she can't leave this ball until the emperor appears. Eliere understood that all these guests were whispering among themselves about how much the emperor was a tyrant. But when he appeared, they immediately flocked to get a closer look. In addition, the main character has already found a way out in advance, and all she has to do is just wait a bit. She intends to drink a little, so that he has a reason to go outside to get some fresh air. While drinking wine, she did not understand why it was so delicious, and she became very interested in where the imperial palace gets alcohol from. Suddenly, the emperor, who was dressed in his beautiful outfit, came out. At that moment, the main character finally saw the face of that person who dealt with her drunken antics. She also admitted that she actually looks pretty. Compare it to the photo from the news, he seems harder to approach in person. However, Eliere still did not understand why when she got drunk she made a propose to a person like that. Besides that, she wondered why such a person hosts a ball on the coming-of-age day, and the main character can't even fathom what he's thinking. So she should hear his explanation for today. Feeling strange, she did not understand why the ball passes without a word from the emperor. Besides, all these people do not even pay attention to it, although this ball is funded by their taxes. She initially knew that she would have problems if she was here. In addition, I don't really like this type of event. It's too arrogant because I thought that it would stand out here. Looking at the red necklace of one lady, Eliere realized that it has more presents than he do. And everyone else is dressed up to the nines too. Besides, even the emperor, who apparently even started to fall asleep, looks not interested in this event. Then the protagonist did not understand that this is the perfect moment to slip out unnoticed right now. Even if she does not know what to think about the emperor, this does not bother her much, since she came here for one purpose, namely, to leave as quickly as possible. While looking at the wine, Eliere drank another glass of wine, since it has a divine taste. Also, the most interesting thing is, if the servants tell her what kind of wine it is, and most likely it must be very expensive. Looking at the main character, Qatar was glad that she was enjoying this ball. However, he noticed that she was drinking too many glasses of wine, and he even thinks to go to her and stop her. Meanwhile, Eliere finished another glass of wine and realized that she wanted to drink more. However, she was already drunk, and she should not do this anymore. Smiling, she decided that now it was time to go home. But suddenly she heard some man who was talking about some kind of necklace. Hearing his voice of the main character was a little surprised how familiar he was. And only this voice can send goosebumps all over her body, and it belongs to one fool who left her. This fool turned out to be Feshide, who was talking about his bride's necklace. His face is ugly and annoying as ever. Looking at the girl who is next to him, the main character suggested that she is his new bride. She also didn't understand why he was showing off her necklace so much. Even Eliere, who doesn't know much about all this, can say that it is tacky. In order to quietly leave, she must pass next to her ex-fiancé, which of course she does not really want to do, but she will have to. Hiding her face, she thought that her ex-fiancé was just a hindrance in her life from the very beginning, and she should get out as soon as possible while he was busy talking with guests. Suddenly, Feshide noticed a girl with blonde hair, which surprised him a little. Looking closely at the main character, he realized that this is the conceited girl who humiliated him, and all this is due to the fact that she thinks that she is a bit educated. Then he immediately told her that he saw a familiar face, and asked her where she was going when the ball just started, and it looks more like she is trying to escape from this event. Smiling, Eliere greeted her ex-fiancé and asked why she would have to run away from the mansion, since this place is the safest place in the capital. Since childhood, the main character was a prodigy, and she was more interested in the workings of mana circuits than teddy bears. And when she read books, we could easily understand them, even for her small age. Therefore, for her little peculiarity, on her birthdays, instead of giving her toys, her parents gave various interesting books. In addition, since she was the only child in the family, her parents gave everything she wanted, as they also wanted them to grow up a well-educated lady. At just 10 years old, the girl was accepted into the Vermongere Academy at the top of her class, but that school is notoriously difficult to get into, even for most scholars. While everyone was busy talking about her, her parents quietly and quickly got her engaged with the count before she went to the academy. Eliere asked her mother why she got engaged to this man because she didn't like him at all. He was old and stupid, with which her mother agreed, saying that she didn't like him either. However, she explained to her that when she grows up, her desire will also become greater, and the count's family is rich, and he will be able to support her in all her aspirations. Also, mother told her daughter that the world refuses to recognize all the things that women can do, and she hopes that the Earl will become a better man after 10 years. Meanwhile, Feshide told the girl that he didn't think anyone was escorting her today, and that's why she's been hiding in the corner all day today. Therefore, it is very pitiful for him to see his ex-fiancée in such a state. Eliere, smiling, although in fact there is not at all funny, did not understand why he cares about her so much, and immediately answered him that he should not worry so much about her. Stole his new bride. He said that this is a necklace that they could now have on Eliere if she changed her mind in time and did not leave it, which surprised the main character a little, and she did not understand why he starts a tantrum. After that, the man added that if she didn't take herself so high and mighty know-it-all, then he would shower her with various necklaces and gems and whatever she wants. Meanwhile, all the guests began to look at them and whisper among themselves, which the main character also did not like. She knew immediately that Feshide wanted her to look sorry, however, that would never happen when leaving. She said that he could do it with his new fiancé and wouldn't bother her anymore. However, Feshide did not want to leave the girl alone and said that he was really sorry for her parents who just wanted her daughter to also have a good man, so that she could live happily ever after. And that is why they got her engaged 10 years ago. He also added that her parents made a big fool of sending their daughter to the academy, because it doesn't matter what a woman learns, it's all useless when they get married. Eliere is actually already tired of looking for a husband, but she doesn't dislike the idea of marriage itself, however. She still understood that this carp that stands in front of him has not changed at all, and the only reason she put up with him was her mother's request, who said that maybe she doesn't understand now, but when she grows up, she will benefit from this engagement. The higher the status of a man in a man whom she marries, the more opportunities she will have in the future. Smiling, Eliere asked Facidi why he didn't hire a tutor to teach him how to use his head correctly, but most likely they have too much faith and his abilities. Upon hearing this, the man will be bewildered and did not even know how to react to it. At the same time, the main character continued to say that being a slow learner is nothing to be ashamed of. But when a person refuses to admit his shortcomings, he is a fool. The Count was furious and asked the main character if she was trying it right now to lecture, but Eliere corrected him by saying that perhaps he meant to say lecture, taking a big step towards the girl. He said that she has no right to communicate in front of him like that. Even if she thinks she is smart, she should not mock him. Raising his hand up, he was preparing to hit the girl for her words. Meanwhile, the main character shuddered and could not even think that he really wanted to hit her. Suddenly, the Emperor interfered and grabbed the guy by the hand, asked what he allows himself, and if he forgot who is hosting this ball. Also, the Emperor added that the rumors about his idiocy were indeed not false, and asked the Count if he intended to create commotions at a ball that he is hosting. After that, the Emperor kicked the Count and he fell to the ground, which greatly surprised everyone present. Qatar, looking the main characters straight in the eyes, asked her if she wants him to deal with this scoundrel. Eliere tensed a little and asked what he meant by the word deal with, to which the Emperor replied that it could take him only 15 seconds to shut him up forever. But for this, he would need to shed some blood. Upon hearing this, the main character got a little scared and began to ask the Emperor not to do this, since it is not necessary. Also looking in the wake of the departing Count, Qatar explained to the girl that she should get rid of everyone that could become an obstacle for her in the future. Qatar added that he was waiting for Eliere to come to him, however. This fool ruined her mood. Besides, they have a lot to talk about. Since the Emperor received the official proposal, he thinks that he must adhere to the obligatory formalities. Like a person who was proposed to, he couldn't go to her because he had to spend some of the tax money to throw this ball. And it's very unpleasant that dummies like that Earl come here. After that, the Emperors asked the main character if she drank too much alcohol again, to which she replied that of course she didn't. However, instead of calmly drinking tea, she chews the plate. She assumed that the bride he always mentions is most likely her. Qatar asked the main character if she needed any medicine, but the main character immediately refused them, although in fact her brain cannot work correctly. Suddenly the Emperor added that she seemed to be too quiet today. Unlike that night, then the girl apologized and asked the Emperor to give her 1 minute to think. At that moment, the Emperor realized that this was not an ideal place to discuss their marriage, so he suggested that the girl go to another place. But she just stood and stared into nothing, not answering anything. As they walked together, all the visitors looked at them in surprise, thinking that Eliere is the secret that was written on the news, but they did not understand why she had blonde hair, while at the same time they wrote that her hair was multicolored on the news. Following the Emperor, the main character is Bran on theft, and thought that he would deal with her now, due to the fact that she interrupted him and harassed him while being drunk. Trudging, she asked herself if it was legal to kill her immediately. Suddenly, she remembered that the Shepherds of the Emperor deals with people right on the spot regardless of the law, and she did not even know if it was right to follow him. Then, going into another room, the Emperor asked the main character if she had already thought, since they had been walking for more than a minute. Then Eliere immediately declared that she had committed a heinous crime, which greatly surprised the Emperor. At that moment, the Emperor replied that although she mentioned the FA, he did not want to talk about such boring topics. But the main character did not listen to what he said, but simply looked into his beautiful eyes. She also asked him to ask him one question, namely that night in the pub. a drunk noble lady without manners, dignity, and pride proposed to him, and it sounds like he accepted that proposal, with which the man will immediately agree, since he was also a little drunk that night. He smiled and was glad that this conversation is finally getting somewhere. Then the main character stated that she did not understand what was going on at all, and the emperor must understand what family she is from. Although she is loyal to the imperial family, he has neither ambition nor talent when it comes to politics. Besides, none of them wants to nothing to gain from this marriage. Qatar was a little at a loss, and did not understand why she immediately refused marriage, since she was the first to propose marriage. Smiling, Eliere replied that she did not refuse, but simply advised the emperor to reconsider this for the future of her country. In addition, the main character is sure that the lady from the great family would be better suited for the position of empress. Blushing, she realized that even though she offered him marriage, she did something sincerely, because she saw his beautiful face. She thought it was struck gold, but she was hitting on the emperor of all people, and if she married him, it would be an imperial marriage. So she asked the emperor to reconsider her decision. Since then, she was, and made a mistake. She also apologized for her rudeness. At that moment, Qatar, if she is sure that she remembers everything correctly, even if she was drunk. Touching a mug of tea and sweating profusely, Eliere even began to doubt the memories she had. The emperor stated that he never looked into her family, her real name, nor anything else about her. So he asked the girl how she thought he could find all this information. A large amount of alcohol makes a person goofy, and the girl even took off his hood and hugged him, which gave the guy a little trouble. He also added that a month should be enough for them to prepare for the wedding. And since the bride has to do more, he suggested that the main character set a date in the near future. When Eliere heard this, she was completely shocked. I don't even know how to react, so she just fell silent. After a while, the main character returned back to her house where Jerry immediately began to ask her if she could find some man she would like. Eliere, bathing in the bath, asked the maid that she would prefer an ignorant and obnoxious carp as a pet or an untamed lion, that there is nothing that surprised the maid a little, and she replied that she would choose anyone, since the lion could kill her, and carp would be a terrible husband. After the bath, the main character wanted to talk to her mother. However, she couldn't find her, so she immediately assumed that she was looking at family portraits. As it turned out, this was the case, and the mother looked early at the portrait of their family. When the main character was still small, looking at her daughter, the woman asked her how she spent her time and whether she was interested in ball. Eliere sadly replied that she was once again convinced that Count Feshide is a garbage human being. Then Mom said that she thinks that tomorrow they will be bombarded with letters from House Feshide. Also, the main character was very interested in what her mother was doing in this room at such a time, to which the woman replied that she just wanted to look at the portrait of their family when she was still small. But she didn't like that they only had portraits of her when she was little, and she decided that they would need to take one more portrait before she got married. Eliere didn't understand why women still have to get married, to which her mother said that times are changing. When she was little, she took a horse out for a ride and was spanked by Eliere's grandfather, and now her daughter received 3 degrees. In addition, even now there are a couple of women who occupy high positions of power. Even if one of them becomes a catalyst, the world can change beyond recognition. Upon hearing this, the main character was surprised and muttering. She realized that in this case, she could achieve so many things if she became an empress. Eliere's mother was at a loss for her daughter's fathers, and asked if His Majesty had already announced who he would marry, to which the main character replied that she herself did not know anything. The woman said that lately she has been hearing a lot of marriage rumors, but she doesn't know if they are true, and even if there really is some woman who is going to marry the emperor, she must be crazy. Meanwhile, Qatar in his bed couldn't stop thinking about Eliere. He imagined her every second. They say that she is like the sun for him. Meanwhile, the main character remembered how that night she stated that even though Qatar is an ordinary commoner, her status is enough for both of them. Besides that, she told him where she lives, saying that he can find her at House Eucalis, and she promised him that if he finds her, she will not pretend that she does not know him. While in her bed, Eliere did not understand why she said this to the emperor. Suddenly, the maid asked Eliere to wake up as soon as possible as people from the imperial palace came, whom the emperor personally sent them. Qatar sent her a letter in which he wrote that he would officially marry Lady Eliere, so all expenses for the wedding would be covered by the imperial family. A man with a mustache added something. The letter was written by the emperor himself. If a girl wants to tell him something, then the man is obliged to convey this to His Majesty. Looking at the main character, the man did not understand why the emperor had already chosen her because she is not so special, although she is pretty smart. Eliere decided to read this letter on her own, where she found out that the budget is still unknown, since the emperor cannot even guess how much it will cost him. So in the letter, he decided to ask his bride if she knows the average price of an imperial wedding. Along with the letter, "These people bring some other items with you, Patch," which surprised the main character very much. "I don't understand why these items will be needed at the wedding tomorrow," to which the man replied that these are just wedding gifts, and all you need from a girl is just a wedding dress. Suddenly, Eliere's mother, rejoicing at her daughter, did not even know that she was marrying the emperor himself. But as you can see from her face, she was furious and apologized for her behavior since she just found out about the news. Looking at her mother, and the main character realized that she was most likely very angry now, and she didn't even know what to do. Suddenly, a man with a mustache added that since Eliere becomes the empress, from this day on, she will be accompanied by these knights, who were personally chosen by the emperor. Worried, the main character asked the man not to force his guards to accompany her tomorrow, but he replied that he had a clear order from the emperor that he could not fail to fulfill it. Eliere understood that she could not tell her mother in front of these knights that she was an offer to the emperor when there was foam. So she once again asked the man to tell the emperor that she did not need guards yet. While reading the news, the main character saw the news about her and the emperor, in which it was written that the emperor undercover helped the lady with a broken heart, help her heal her wounds. Love blossomed between them. This is all very romantic, of course, but Eliere wished this paper had arrived before the people from the palace. Also, the girl listened to her mother, who said that her father should return home soon, and he will most likely be in complete shock when he finds out who his daughter will marry. In addition, the mother was unhappy that Eliere did not tell her this news as soon as she returned from ball. Eliere could not even imagine that His Majesty would put a romantic spin on her mortifying behavior and have the story published as an article. The mother replied that she was actually very happy for her daughter that she was finally getting married, but she should have told her before. There is 1 month left before the wedding, and they have a lot of work to do. The first thing they need to do is compile the guest list and send them all an invitation. Suddenly, the main character looked at her mother's face and asked her why she didn't look happy. Because the person Eliere's is wed has more power and status than anyone else in this empire, and that's exactly what she wanted. To which the woman replied that the wedding between nobles could be cancelled, even if the other family is more powerful than theirs, and all they had to do was suffer some losses. On the other hand, they simply have no choice but to obey the orders of the imperial family. Also, the mother knows that her daughter has most likely heard about the rumors about the current emperor. The newspaper made the story sound romantic, but the woman is afraid that her daughter may find it difficult to live with the emperor, not only as a wife, but also as an empress. Eliere admitted that her mother is right, and she still can't believe that she is marrying the emperor, even though he is not a stupid man. While their story isn't at all romantic like the novels, Eliere doesn't know why he used her drunken antics as an excuse to marry her, and she suggests he might be a tyrant. At that moment, the main character confidently said that even though her mother is right, the emperor won't look down on her because she is a woman, but she is still going to go through this marriage, and in the end, he is still better than Feshide. Upon hearing this, the mother understood her daughter, but the main character immediately realized that her mother is completely unsure, but she is glad that she respects her decision. Then the main character wanted to go to her room to get some rest, but her mother immediately stopped her, saying that they still have a lot to do. Besides, there was only 1 month left before the wedding and they need to hurry. In addition, now that everyone in the capital has learned about the wedding, they will immediately run to them in order to find out every slightest detail about their family. Since they are not involved in politics, they will be interested in Eliere, since she is the daughter-in-law of the emperor. In addition, the woman advised her daughter not to read any books for the whole month, since weddings do not require research and a thesis. Besides, they should call a doctor in advance for her father when he faints from this news. And for a beautiful dress, they will need to find new seamstresses and browse the boutiques when her bodyguards get here. Meanwhile, the butler, returning back to the imperial palace, told the emperor that the main character wanted them to send her guards tomorrow and not today. Holding the letter, Qatar asked the butler to multiply the imperial wedding budget by 3 before sending the letter to her. Suddenly, one of the knights, approaching the emperor, said that Count Feside, who caused a commotion at the ball, sent a letter to the main character where he was calling off the engagements. And although who took quite a long time, he still sent a letter in which it was written that their second son will be replacing the count as the heir. However, there is a small problem. Because the count was able to escape this morning, they couldn't find him, and the knights are afraid that they won't see him again at all. He was able to hide well from them. Being angry, the count said that he would deal with everyone who stood in his way. But first of all, he would deal with the main character who started it all. He will do everything possible to give her the most humiliating and painful death. After hearing this, Qatar realized that he should have dealt with this count even earlier, since these fools do not understand what kind of parasites they are. But if he dealt with him on the ball, then Eliere would be too scared to marry him. Then he ordered the knights to find this count as soon as possible and bring him alive, since the main character might be disappointed in him if she finds out about this. Suddenly thinking, he thought that if a man does not show any signs of improvement even after many chances, it would be better if he did not exist on this planet at all. The next day, Eliere was talking to her future husband, who asked her how the wedding preparations were going, and if they needed any help. Looking at his beautiful face, the main character replied that he had already given her plenty, so she thinks that she doesn't need anything else. Besides this, she didn't understand why the emperor called her here, but she even likes it because everything is very romantic. Seeing that his Eliere does not drink tea, Eliere suggested that she did not like his taste at all. However, when she, the heroine, immediately stated that he was just perfect, to which the man replied that she had never even touched a mug of tea since she arrived here. So he suggested that his future wife was not feeling well. However, the main character asked him not to worry, as she feels absolutely fine, although in fact she sent invitations to all the guests all night. Also, Eliere remembered how her mother asked her not to tell the emperor in any case that she sent invitations to guests all night. Smiling, she told the temperature that she was worried that the wedding dress would not suit her, to which the man asked her not to worry about such a trifle. After that, she said that she felt like it was taking up too much of his time. And besides, they won't have a very long engagement period after they get married, since usually couples get to know each other better during this period. Looking into his beautiful eyes, the main character wanted to ask him about something. Namely, this is due to Sir Balt, which is the personal knight of the emperor. Qatar thought that this knight was not doing his job right, but the main character immediately explained to him that she felt that the knights were overprotecting her, and they were not even married yet. The girl also added that she does not feel comfortable when he is next to her all the time. At that moment, she remembered how Balte came to her at home, and bowing before her said that he must protect her with his life, since it was a direct order from the emperor. At that moment, the main character was very surprised, and asked the knight to rise. After this incident, the knight watched the girl all the time and did not leave her alone for a second, which even irritated the main character a little, and she told him that he could rest because there were no dangers in her house. Then the knight finally realized that he was making the main character feel a little uncomfortable, and he promised her that he would reduce his presence near her. Suddenly, Kater asked the main character if she had come down with the latest news about House Fekedi, which surprised the main character a little, and she said that she only heard cuts, and all she knows is that the second son has become the new heir to the family. Although this carp is very stupid, his family works in trade, and his family made the right move by choosing a second son instead of him. She also said that it's been a while since her engagement with him got called off, so she doesn't know many details. Then Qatar declared that the fool whom the girl calls Carp disappeared after the emperor ordered his knight to arrest him. He also said that he hasn't made a public announcement yet. Also, in commemoration of their imperial marriage, the emperor lowered taxes and raised subsidies for the slums. which is why all the people in the capital are now celebrating. And that's why he doesn't want to make an announcement that will ruin their mood. Foreigners also decided to come to these events, and they were allowed to enter the empire. However, Qatar is not so stupid and increased security at the border for anyone exiting. Hearing this, Elier was surprised and realized that this fool most likely committed some kind of crime. Qatar said he apparently evaded a large amount of taxes for one of his businesses. Plus, he smuggled in a large number of illegal items. There are no signs that he escaped from the capital, so he is most likely still hiding somewhere here. Besides this, the main character will soon become the Empress, and who knows what this fool has in her mind. Which is why Qatar sent Sir Balti, since he is his best knight. At that moment, the main character became interested in what would happen if that bastard, namely Fekide, could somehow escape from the capital. But that the emperor replied that in that case they would deal with him in accordance with the law. But he still had death hiding somewhere. Hearing this, Elier was a little scared and decided that she would no longer ask stupid questions. Suddenly, Balti approached them, who knows perfectly well that they need to leave, and told the main character that he would accompany her. Approaching the knight, the main character asked him what kind of person the emperor is in his eyes, to which Balti calmly replied that His Majesty is a good person. Upon hearing this, the main character wanted to know if he had any hobbies, to which the knights also replied that the emperor did nothing. The knight's answers surprised the girl a little, and this reminded her of the time where she forced herself to compliment her professor. Suddenly, Balt, blushing, said that although the emperor has no hobbies, he is very strong, and no one has yet been able to defeat him in combat. His performance at the Kuril Mountains was quite admirable. At that moment, Elier realized that Balte liked the emperor, and decided that she would ask him even more questions, asking if he went with him to the Western Mountains. Balte answered yes, adding that back then the emperor was younger than him, but his skills were superior to those of a knight, which was really amazing. Besides, without him there, their demon-slaying expedition wouldn't have succeeded. After hearing this, the main character realized that the emperor is really skilled, if a knight like Sir Balte has so much respect for him. Besides, if he was selfish, he would not be able to lead the knights to such a dangerous place like that. Elier decided that after she married him, she would try to change his tyrannical image. Besides, she felt very uncomfortable because he did not ask her rude questions like she did. Meanwhile, Qatar still couldn't stop thinking about the main character, and even watched her through the window in his office. At the same time, some man said that he would not do this because she was not ordinary. He was not going to be kidnapped by the daughter of a noble. As it turned out, Fechide tried to hire men to kidnap the main character, but the man immediately refused as it was very unsafe for him. In addition, in recent days, the Empire has increased the level of security. At that moment, the Count threw a bag of gold coins on the table, saying that he was ready to give twice as much money as he had originally. Seeing this amount of money, the man immediately thought and realized that with this money, he could live for a couple of months without working at all. With a malicious smile, Fekide asked the man to promise him that nothing would happen to him. In addition, Elier's family does not have such great power and he is just punishing her a bit for getting on his nerves. And all the kidnapper has to do is just stop the carriage and do his thing. Also, the Count ordered the man not to tell anyone that he hired him, because even if he feels that the man is planning to say this, he will quickly deal with him, and the police will not even be able to help him. Also, if the girl has a security guard, Fechide said that he himself deal with him. Holding some kind of magic ring in his hands, he added that he had a special weapon. Meanwhile, Balte told Elier that he heard that she was going to go check her dress today. However, several foreigners have arrived in the Empire recently, so there will be many people on the street. Although the Empire's security has been increased, Balte advises the main character to return home for dinner. Since no one knows what might happen to her, he also asked her to tell him about her other plans, if she has any, of course. Upon hearing this, Elier said that everything will be fine and the knight should not worry. She also explained to him that her schedule fits only a few duties. Upon hearing this, the knights thought that he was making the girl feel uncomfortable again, but she replied that everything was fine, and she feels bad for troubling him. Balte explained that he needs to know her full daily schedule in order to do his job right and protect her. At that moment, the main character began to recall the words of Qatar. in which he said that Sir Balti would protect her until the wedding, and therefore it is worth acting as if he was not even here. Then the knight said that he would go to the coachman who was in front of the carriage, so she decided that she should get used to his constant presence. Besides, she is sure that he himself doesn't want to tend to a woman who isn't even the empress yet. There is also worth it in how she is in all the news, and the carp has not even been caught yet. The only thing she didn't understand was why they hadn't caught him yet, since security at the border is so high. Meanwhile, Balti had already approached the carriage where they saw a dimple who bowed in front of him. Looking at his face, the knight was a little surprised, and did not understand why this was a different coachman, since before that there was another one. She did not understand what had happened to him, although in fact this man was the kidnapper. The coachman replied that he was ill, so now he will drive the carriage. In addition, the knight can check everything he needs if he does not believe. Looking the man straight in the eyes, Balti asked if he knew who he would be driving. Also add that they do not use the imperial carriage on purpose for the lady's safety. Therefore, if I tell them at all to someone about this, he will have to deal with dire consequences. Hearing this, the kidnapper sat in his seat and began to tremble, realizing that Fekide had deceived him when he said that her family did not have much power, although she should become an empress. After a while, Eliere finally came out in her beautiful dress, where Balta began to help her get into the carriage. They say that he should accompany her. However, he will be in another carriage. Having heard this, the main character, thanks to the knights, said that she could never even think that she will be accompanied by an imperial knight. When the kidnapper heard this, he began to tremble even more. Since the imperial knight would make his job much more difficult, however, at that moment, he decided that he would finish his job, since he had already accepted the money. First, the abductor must quickly deal with the maid and run away. Everything else that happens is of no interest to him. After a while, the main character came to her friends, who were amazed by her beauty. They just couldn't take their eyes off her beautiful dress, as it was perfect and fit. Madame Rosso said that she specifically toned down the decorations as per her request, and it's for an imperial wedding after all, which Jerry agreed with, saying that it looks more luxurious. Then Eliere was finally glad that her life began to improve a little. Gina really would marry the emperor of the whole nation. Looking at her maid, the main character noticed that she was really very excited. After she moved to the imperial palace, she would not be able to see her again. Leaving the house, not busy now, Smile asked the main character to meet again in order for her to correct the dress. She also said that she would have to try to maintain her figure as best as she can. When the main character heard this, she immediately realized that the designer was trying to gently tell her not to gain weight. So she replied that she would try to do everything as best as possible. Besides, Eliere noticed that a lot of people are staring at her, although she assumes something should be normal. Turning around, she said that she should move as soon as possible at home, like Sir Balt said. All of a sudden, she saw a man very similar to her Fekid, and she immediately knew that it was him. She started calling him, but he immediately disappeared and fled. Balti, taking his sword, decided to see who it was. However, he also did not see anyone, and he realized that they had lost the count. Also looking at this place, he realized that there really was no one here, but he did not understand how the count had escaped, since there are a lot of different buildings through which it is simply impossible to escape so quickly. When he said that they need to quickly get back to the estate, Balt assumed that the main character was simply mistaken, and I can calmly just explain that it is simply impossible to hide there, unless they were trained for that sort of thing. After that, the knight mounted his horse and ordered the coachman to return back to the estate. While in the carriage, the main character, thinking, realized that Fechide had never studied martial arts, and most likely, another strong family sent someone after her. Meanwhile, Eliere put this magic ring on her finger and said that now it's time for him to deal with this girl and finally take revenge on her.